My mother had a big, beautiful garden. The walkway leading down to it was lined with fruit trees of every kind: apple, pear, apricot, plum, cherry, peach, and nectarine. The garden itself was a masterpiece. Every vegetable you can imagine, with strawberries growing in carefully painted boxes, and the whole garden was bordered by a massive row of raspberries. Sprinkled throughout were splashes of golden marigolds, pale pink peonies, and purple cosmos. My children were small when my mother had this garden, and they loved to play in it. They chased butterflies and danced on the little bridge that crossed the creek on the back side of the property. Many evenings I stood at the top of the hill and watched the sunset behind them, taking in the lilac and honeysuckle-scented breezes while they gathered baskets full of big, juicy blackberries, raspberries, and strawberries. It was as close to a piece of heaven on earth as I can think of. As my mother got older, she needed to move to a smaller place, and it was my good fortune to inherit this magnificent garden. I excitedly looked forward to carrying on the tradition. Maybe I should mention, though, my mother had grown up on a farm in Idaho. I was a California city girl. We had a swimming pool in our backyard, not a garden. Why I thought I could step into that garden and instinctively know how to take care of it makes no sense to me today. At the time, I couldn't see any problems. That first spring, my husband and I eagerly picked out the packets of seeds and took our kids down to the garden to plant them. We felt so proud of ourselves as we stepped back and dreamed of the great harvest ahead. Seemingly overnight, we found ourselves facing the biggest crop of weeds you've ever seen. We couldn't even tell the weeds from the plants. Nothing had prepared us for the amount of time and work it was going to take to get on top of them. And we never did. As the season wore on, I noticed the leaves on the raspberry plants were starting to curl and wither, and then the plants started to die. We cut them all down, hoping they'd grow back the next spring. They didn't. The strawberries stopped producing fruit. The apples had worms in them, and our entire cherry crop was carried away by the birds, who mockingly spit the pits back at us. Realizing we had overestimated ourselves, the next year we decided to focus on one crop. So we went out and bought every variety of tomato plant we could find, 72 plants in all. We watered them and weeded them and caged them, and then one glorious day we had a bonanza harvest of tomatoes. We picked boxes and boxes of them. We gave them to our neighbors and our friends. We had tomatoes with every meal. We made salsa and spaghetti sauce, and still we found ourselves with boxes and boxes of tomatoes rotting in our patio. After a while, there was nothing we could do but take them out in the field and dump them. Now I'm sure you're thinking what a dope I was. Why on earth did I not can them? The simple fact was, I didn't know how. The next year we planted 2 zucchini plants, and then after that it was just easier and cheaper to buy all our produce at the store. Within a few short seasons, my mother's beautiful garden was overrun and choked with weeds. I had completely ruined it. Certainly not out of willfulness or laziness, but out of sheer ignorance. Now, no one would ever say the garden had failed. Clearly, the fault was with the hands to which the garden had been entrusted. I simply had no clue how to take care of it or how to make good use of the fruits of that labor. There are those today who say our Garden of Liberty has failed, that the American experiment in self-government doesn't work. They even go so far as to say that our sweet land of liberty never even existed. These enlightened ones tell us there's nothing left to do but plow under the garden and pour a nice slab of cement over it and plant a Walmart on top, because as we all know, you can get everything you need at Walmart. But I can tell you from my own experience that even though the strawberries I buy at Walmart may provide all the nutritional requirements my body needs to survive, I have never tasted a strawberry from Walmart that came anywhere close to tasting as sweet as the strawberries from my mother's garden, and I, for one, am not ready to settle. And so I've been doing what I should have done with my mother's garden. I've spent the last several years digging up and brushing off the gardener's manuals. Fortunately for us, those who gave us our republic left us with detailed notes and advice. They told us what pests and bugs to be on guard against. They described the symptoms of disease and how to treat it before it caused too much damage. What I noticed most in their writings was their focus on soil preparation. They knew the secret behind the miracle of America had everything to do with the hearts and character of her citizens. Without adequate soil preparation, the garden wouldn't grow. And so one of their first orders of business was to establish common schools for the purpose of training up the next generation of gardeners for the republic they had labored so hard to establish. I've read the school laws and statutes of many of those early schools. Their national standards looked a bit different than ours. Their instructional focus was on, quote, principles of piety, justice, and a sacred regard to truth, love to their country, humanity and universal benevolence, sobriety, industry and frugality, chastity, moderation and temperance, and those other virtues which are the ornament of human society and the basis upon which a republican constitution is founded. Their stated outcome was, quote, to lead their pupils into a clear understanding of the tendency of the above-mentioned virtues to preserve and perfect a republican constitution and secure the blessings of liberty as well as to promote their future happiness. When was the last time you heard anyone bring up any of these concerns when we talk about problems with education today? Somewhere along the way, it seems our schools stopped teaching our children to tend and grow their own gardens of happiness and instead started producing skilled laborers to work in someone else's garden. Another common thread of instruction that ran through all their writings was the necessity of an open Bible, because the Bible was the rock upon which everything was built. They warned that you may as well plant a seed in air and expect it to grow as ignore the Bible and expect America to thrive. A people who knew that their inalienable rights were endowed by their Creator would never allow an intruder to step in and take those rights away. The Bible was the one book with the power to unite a people because no one group could claim ownership of it. Its universal message of the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man touched hearts across nationalities and across denominations. The Bible was the key to self-government. They gravely warned us that if it was ignored or rejected, our expiring anguish will surpass that of any nation that ever lived. A recent survey indicates that the average American owns 3 copies of the Bible, but doesn't read any of them. Are we starting to feel a bit of that expiring anguish? I'm afraid we've really mucked things up. Our beautiful Garden of Liberty is overrun and choked with weeds of debt, corruption, and greed. We've got worms in our apples and boxes of tomatoes rotting in the patio. But I'll tell you why I still have hope. I have hope because I believe in a liberty-loving God who has the power to make things right. He knows better than to hand over the rare and prized gift of liberty to a people who don't know how to take care of it, or how to make good use of the inevitable bounteous harvest of prosperity that always accompanies true liberty. To place liberty in the hands of such a people is as much a waste as my mother turning her garden over to me. But just as soon as he finds a people who are prepared, who have diligently studied the gardener's manuals, and who show by their actions they value the gift so much they would pledge their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to possess it, to that people he promises that he will stand guard over them as they labor. For them, he will turn the soil over if needs be and prepare it for new planting, just as he did with our founding fathers. I moved away from my mother's garden a long time ago. I feel so badly that I ruined it. I have the same pangs of regret when I read the stories of the sacrifices and struggles of our patriot mothers and fathers and think of what we've done to the beautiful republic they left us. While there's nothing I can do to reclaim my mother's garden, there's a lot I can do as a laborer for freedom. Yes, elections and policies are important, but it turns out most of the real work of the republic is done at home and involves character and heart. I now understand that lessons in liberty do not come instinctively to us or our children. We have to be willing to make time to learn and teach them. And anyone who believes we can move the cause of freedom forward without the hand of divine providence should try gardening without sunshine. America's Garden of Liberty is not dead, but it has been sorely neglected. We are at risk of losing it altogether. I believe it's worth every effort to reclaim and restore it for our children and our children's children. Do you?